Geography has some strange stories to tell. And, well, we have a bunch of them ready to be told. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 amazing geographic facts. 25. Mount Thor. The biggest vertical drop on the planet can be found here at Mount Thor in Canada. The summit is an altitude-busting 4,100 feet up, and it reportedly takes minutes to fall down the length of it. If you're wearing a parachute, of course. Once you jump off the edge, you'll be traveling almost a mile straight down. 24. Australian volcanoes. An amazing fact about Australia concerns its volcanoes. You'll certainly find them, but it seems they're taking the same laid-back attitude the country's known for. The land down under has nothing in the way of rumblings and grumblings from beneath the earth, at least right now. This puts Australia in the unique position of being the only continent without volcanic activity. The last eruption they had was approximately 5,000 years ago. 23. 32 years. That's how long it would take to visit every beach in Australia. And this is just a guesstimate. There's a whole lot of coastline here, which is lovely to visit but epic to travel across. I'm talking 12,000 beaches, or thereabouts, spread along approximately 37,000 miles worth of coast. 22. 1,500. This is the number of earthquakes experienced in Japan every year. Why is it so seismic? Unfortunately for Japan, it's perched on top of a geological standoff, by which I mean it has no less than 4 tectonic plates underneath. These huge sections of cracked up crust rub against each other, resulting in tremors and other trouble up top. Thankfully, a lot of these quakes are small, generally going unnoticed by the population. 21. The Poles of Chicago. And I'm talking about people from Poland, by the way. The city hosts close to 2 million Polish residents. The reasons for this are to do with upheavals over in Europe, going back hundreds of years. The November uprising of 1830 saw Poles fleeing their home country and landing in Chicago. When serfdom died out over the coming decades, Chicago accommodated peasant families looking for a fresh start. Then, as late as the 1980s, more Poles arrived due to major political changes. 20. The highest town in the world. La Rinconada in Peru takes this title, with residents living approximately 3 miles above sea level. It has a population of some 50,000 and has long-held ties to gold mining, following its foundation around the 1980s. What's it like living so high up? Well, 1 in 4 of the people there suffer from CMS, chronic mountain sickness. The altitude up in the Andes leads to reactions as mild as dizziness and as severe as a heart attack. 19. The world's shortest international border. How short would you say the world's shortest international border is? The island of Peñón de Vélez de la Gomera answers that question with a surprisingly small 85 meters. It's Spanish territory, even though the rock is situated in North Africa. Spanish conquerors grabbed hold of it in the late 16th century, and it borders Morocco. This makes Peñón de Vélez an exclave, as in somewhere belonging to one country which is surrounded by the territory of someplace else. 18. The lake with no owner. Lake Constance in the Alps is a picturesque location that surely anyone would want to visit. One crazy thing about it, however, is the fact that no one knows who it belongs to. With 3 countries to choose from, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, it's a geographical pickle that hasn't been resolved. What caused this situation in the first place? Paperwork. Reportedly, the treaties needed to iron out any issues weren't drawn up, leading to complete confusion. 17. Pheasant Island. This landmass near the Bay of Biscay has both French and Spanish ownership, though it isn't a case of you take one half, I'll take the other. Under an agreement drawn up in 1659, Spain owns it between February and July each year, with France taking over the rest of the time. It's also the planet's oldest and smallest condominium. And no, I'm not talking like a house condo. This is the other meaning of condominium, as in a country with more than one owner. 16. Why does Bolivia have a navy? It sounds like a strange question to ask, but it makes sense when you consider that Bolivia doesn't have any sea. It certainly used to have one before 1884 and the War of the Pacific. These days, however, the country is landlocked, with access to the briny deep dependent on Chile. Since then, the fighting force numbering around 5,000 has gone about its business in a very reduced capacity as the Fuerza Naval Boliviana. 15. The meaning of the Spanish Steps. It turns out the Spanish Steps in Rome, aren't so Spanish after all. Composed of 135 steps, it's a well-known tourist attraction with a confusing history. The landmark was built in 1723 with a combination of Italian designers and French money. Where does the name Spanish Steps come from then? Well, it refers to the Piazza de Spagna, or Spanish Square, at the bottom. Here you'll find the Spanish Embassy. Bonus fact, the landmark was the result of a design competition held by the Pope. Oh, holy Baroque architecture, Batman. 14. Maine and Africa. Did you know that Maine is the closest US state to Africa? And it's actually closer than you think. Quoddy Head Peninsula is reportedly just 3,154 miles away from Morocco. No short distance, but not exactly an epic one either. The distance between Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles is under 1,000 miles less than that. It definitely makes you think. 13. Alabama Iron and Steel. Alabama is one resourceful state. It's one of the go-to places for pipes, thanks to its plentiful supplies of steel, or rather the ingredients that go into making it. There are limestone, coal, and iron ore. They do pretty well with iron for that reason also. Not for nothing does this part of the world have its own iron and steel museum. I'd imagine that that's one building that's extremely hard to break into. 12. The Flat State. How flat is Kansas? While its inhabitants may find it insulting to hear their home described as flat as a pancake, the truth is unfortunately out there for all to see. It's been scientifically proven. A report was issued by the geography departments at Southwest Texas State and Arizona State Universities. They even titled it "Kansas is Flatter Than a Pancake." Talk about rubbing it in. The report concluded that the state is flat to the tune of 0.9997. That's approximate, but a pancake measures 0.957. Sorry, Kansas, you've taken a battering there. 11. Canada has its own Dead Sea. While you may think of Israel and Jordan when someone mentions the Dead Sea, it isn't the only sodium-rich game in town. Little Manitou Lake in Saskatchewan may only have half the saltiness of its competitor, but someone who ventures into those waters is going to float like a plastic bottle just as effectively. By the way, you float due to the concentrated minerals making the water denser than you are. Also the Salt Lake. I haven't been to Saskatchewan yet, but I have been to the Great Salt Lake. Lived just outside of it in Magna, Utah. Swam. You float. A lot of bugs. 10. The South Pacific Gyre. The South Pacific Gyre has been called the desert of that particular ocean. Why? Because you don't find much in the way of life in this remote area. Or do you? See, gyre means vortex, a word that conjures up freaky images, and they don't come much freakier than a great white convention. Sharks based on the west coast are known to spend part of the year around this zone, somewhere referred to as the White Shark Cafe. I dread to think what's on the menu there. 9. Ireland has 3 seas. The Emerald Isle has a trio of water masses to choose from. Going from east to west, there's the Irish Sea, the Celtic Sea, and last but not least, the Atlantic Ocean. The Irish Sea, for example, benefits from the Gulf Stream, among other factors, with higher temperatures meeting the North Atlantic and taking the edge off. 8. Malaysia is comparable in size to New Mexico. One is a country, and the other is a state, yet they cover pretty much the same amount of ground. What's known as the Federation of Malaysia, which came into being in 1963 from the old Malayan Union, is 329,750 square kilometers. Compare it to New Mexico, a state since 1912, and you have a difference of around 15 square kilometers. 7. The Land of the Blue Sky. That's the title given to Mongolia, due to the fact that for much of the time, you don't see clouds there. Why is this? Well, for starters, it's very high up, lying approximately 0.98 miles or 1,580 meters above sea level. Its proximity to the Himalayas and other mountains means that clouds are kept at bay for 2/3 of the year. The rocky landscape works against humidity in the air, warding off the likes of cumulonimbus. Their weather is also pretty amazing if you like winter. The heat does descend, but not for long. 6. China has shocking air quality. In recent decades, the economic growth of China has spelled good news for profits, but bad news for the environment. In 2022, it was ranked 25th out of the planet's most polluted countries. Plus, it's been reported that the air quality could be responsible for as many as 1.2 million deaths every year. 5. 10% of Finland is lakes. How many lakes does one country need? Amazingly, the number of glaciers that were around back in the day has led to this part of the world being literally awash with them. In the Ice Age, glaciers eroded land, creating hollows for water to seep into once the glaciers melted. The country has earned the name of Land of 1,000 Lakes, which is no understatement. There are actually around 200,000 lakes, making up an enormous 10% of the total landmass. 4. The Norwegian King is guarded by a penguin. No, this isn't some crazy Pixar movie, it's an actual state of affairs. The creature has its own name and title, Major General Sir Nils Olav. Now, if you were to try to attack the Norwegian monarch, would the Major General swoop in and kill you? Well, not likely, because he's based at Edinburgh Zoo in Scotland. The King's Guard first started adopting penguins there back in the 1970s. 3. Ozark wasn't filmed in the Ozarks. The hit Netflix show has boosted tourism to the Lake of the Ozarks. However, there's a twist. Ozark wasn't filmed in Missouri. Instead, they went to Georgia for the tax breaks. A lot of the show was reportedly shot at a reservoir connected to the US military. I felt a little cheated when I heard about this, but then what do you expect from a character like Marty Bird? 2. Spain is in France. You heard that right. France and Spain have had their little differences in the past, putting it mildly, but old hostilities have simmered down, with treaties signed and strange geographical features left behind as a result. One of these is Livia village, located near the commune of Bourg-Madame in the south of France. Because someone didn't do their due diligence with the paperwork, the Spanish territory of Livia stayed Spanish instead of becoming French. Hence, you can go there and be in Spain whilst also being in France. 1. The North Pole can move. We tend to think of Earth's poles as fixed points, yet nothing could be further from the truth. Can you believe the North Pole can shift at a rate of 50 miles per day? It was reported that whilst it was once near to Canada, the pole is now approaching Siberia. The magnetic field of the Earth, powered from the core by a gloop made from molten iron, has pushed the pole in this direction. The idea that the North and South poles can move around like meatballs on a plate of spaghetti is enough to prove that geography is truly amazing. So, what's a cool geographic fact from your neck of the woods? Let me know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to share, like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and also check out our social medias, including my personal ones. Links in the description. And if you like this list, you need to check out 25 unbelievable Earth facts. So click this one right here. Should be right here. Click it. Dude, while we're on the topic of Earth stuff, let's watch more Earth stuff. Why not? It's a beautiful planet we live on. So let's learn about it. Together, you and me. Let's go.